Hey, what's up everybody? This is exmaxhina again with another breakdown video. Today we're going to be going over a tune that's coming out on my upcoming album, Phantom of the Ether. By the time of watching this video, you may have already seen that it may have released. It drops on AUDIUS exclusively for 1 month on January 11, 2025, and then worldwide on February 8th, 2025, on all streaming platforms. But before then, I want to definitely go over some of these breakdown videos, and today we're going to be going over Distance. This is a track that I actually had a lot of trouble with kind of getting the mix down. It may not even be perfect still, but we got it to a point where it was listenable, and yeah, we'll go ahead and start there. So just to kind of look at the project file here, we've got some main sections here. It is organized a little different compared to my last breakdown video, but all of the elements are still there. So we have the drum and bass section, we have the vocal and synth section, and so in this project file I have both the vocals and my leads in one group. And then just to kind of add some background sounds, we've got some glitchy vinyl back here. Now, within the drum and bass section, I do have my signature sounds just to get the mix to sound a little bit better. I kind of shifted some things around just so they just meld better. Okay, so just to start off, we are going to go over the drum and bass. Well, actually, you know what? Let's play the track first so you can hear what it sounds like in the intro and then into the first section. All right, so we're going to go over that first section there just to break down the elements. And then there is a slight switch up near the end, which we'll also go over as well. So just to start, we have the drum and bass section here. This is separated in a few elements. So we have the kick and bass. So if we just solo that here. So in this track, I'm not using any sort of latency on the drums. It seems that everything is pretty much on the grid for this one. And to be honest, that may have been probably a little reason of why I may have had trouble mixing this track, just because there was a lot of elements just clashing, and so the master wasn't hitting the way I wanted, so it took a lot of trial and error. But yeah, so we have the same kick and bass that I typically use, so the kick from my sample pack, and then the guitar bass preset, that instrument preset that Ableton has available. So guitar bass. So that is available to anyone, I believe, that has the suite. And then I just added a little bit of EQ, some grain delay here in some sections. Not quite sure which section. Just a little bit at the end, but barely, like 2%. And then we have a 808, which is actually, we could play that for you. So it just adds a little switch up from the guitar bass that I have, and you'll hear that section in a bit. All right, so that's over the drum and bass. But now we do have the typical snare, obviously. Now I do have some EQ on that. And then Supermassive, obviously, my favorite tool. And just to kind of show you what the EQ, or sorry, the automation looks like. So just soloing the snare, Supermassive adds those textures. pretty saucy. And in this case, I do have a additional snare layer, and this just adds some crunch. And this one seems to be a static snare, so it doesn't really change, maybe in velocity slightly here or there from the snare sample that I had. And so altogether, the snare should sound a little bit fatter. So if you just solo, for example, this snare, doesn't hit by adding the layer, a slight click. And you can see that this actually plays a little bit earlier, so almost 4 milliseconds faster, or about 4 milliseconds faster than this snare here. So it comes in a little bit sooner, and that's why it's pretty short, because I don't want it to clash with the other snare. Now, as far as the hats go, let's take a look here. We've got a few different kinds of sounds. I kind of group my crash sound and then my hats together. Oh yeah. See, all of those textures, it just really adds a lot. And you can see that we have some grain delay on the crash. And grain delay just adds so much. So feel free to use grain delay on literally anything. I use it on drums sometimes, different kind of sound elements, even vocals often. So totally worth. And then I have the Supermassive plugin as well, which is making those automation changes. Same thing with the reverse crash. We've got. So now one thing that I really like doing, and you won't be able to see it here, but if you check out any audio clip, so if you double click it and then you take a look at the warp features here, I tend to use this like arrow forward, and then I change the preserve to like something like maybe 132, and then bring down this bar, and you start to create a syncopation. Let me see if I can play this. You see, or even 116, 1/4. And you could really change it up, honestly. But that's how I get a lot of my sounds, and it sounds great, in my opinion. And I do that on different kind of sounds as well. So vocals, sometimes drums like this, even synths, just to kind of give it a little bit more sauce. Now, the other hat we have here, pretty simple. These are all samples from my free sample pack. And then we have like open hi-hats. And then we have whatever this is. Yeah, glitchy sound. And it's like a loop that I think found, and then just obviously chopped it up and did some effects on it, and that's what you get. Now, with all of the hats again together, it gives you this. And that goes over the drum and bass section. And just to play that section so you can hear it all together. Ooh. And then if we were to check out that switch up section at the end with the 808. So that all together really gives it a good textural base for us to start laying down the actual elements of the track. So we have vocal and synth. So this is the next section here. And let's take a look. So we've got the main lead, and you can see that I've got it duplicated, 25 to the left, 25 to the right, and some of it is different. There are sections of it where you'll notice, because I believe I used two different synths, so the waveforms look a little different. So this is the left. It's like a little sine wave. And then the right, you get an actual synth. And then together, and then we have this other element here, which is like a layer. And this one I do use like OTT, bit of imaging and grain delay, soothe. I mean, I honestly, you can slap on different effects, and really it's just destructive editing or sound painting. Just try to achieve the sound in whatever way possible using whatever tools you have necessary. And then, get funky with it and try different parameters and things just to bring out the best of certain sounds. And so now when I solo the lead sound and then also this synth together, we get a nice layer. And then with another lead here, these are just more of like transitional sounds to kind of keep the flow going. I always like having a mix of really soft sounds, but then soft sounds that are taken to the edge, kind of like this, to give it a more heavier feel. Just because I do come from a clubbing background, performing in clubs and stuff, I really enjoyed the drops of tunes. And so even when producing dark lo-fi glitch stuff and lo-fi beats, there was never really like a drop section where you just kind of head bob and really enjoy. Um, I mean, there are, but it wasn't the same when you come from like performing and producing like techno and house music. And so I really wanted to bring that vibe and element into my music and then my transition. So you may notice like a lot of my structures, you'll have like the initial drop or like the beat, and then there's like this switch up, and then sometimes you'll have like a second switch up or a build, and then the last section usually I try to go crazy with it, because obviously if you get to the end, it's worth rewarding. And so I always love adding some sauce to my final drops most of the time. So always look out for that on my tunes, because that's kind of how my style goes, and I really enjoy doing those things. Now, this other synth here I think is the same. Yeah, it's the same, but just a different glitch. Okay, and so now if we were to just solo the drum and bass and then also the leads here, we could get this. It sounds good, but you can definitely hear the missing elements. And that's why I really enjoy the meticulous editing. So like, for example, we're missing the vocals, which is the next section here. And you can see that this is really doing some edits. So let's play it. Okay. And when you add that to the actual beat, it really fills in that space. And so on my vocals, I have some pretty basic stuff. I've got like a frequency echo to add a little sauce in areas that I want. And then I have some reverb. And then a lot of my vocals will have a preset that I've created for my syncopation. So this LFO tool I use a lot, and I have a gate of 116 and 132. This is what pretty much allows me to get these really nice techno vibe sounds. And then I use that on a lot of stuff there. And so, yeah, so that pretty much breaks down all of those main elements. And then we have this final sound in the background to kind of fill the space. And this is just like some nature sounds that I recorded and then glitched up. So usually reversing it and then stretching it, things like that. And so now when we put them all together, we actually get a pretty cohesive piece. And then we have this second part. And then the last section we'll go over is the mastering chain. And this is pretty similar to a lot of my previous breakdowns for this album. I typically start with a limiter, and then I will do maybe a little bit of EQ in areas. I use Ozone for my main mastering chain. I'll sometimes use like the master assistant. It'll pull in some basic EQing. You can see that I needed to drop some bass. Did some, not so much imaging, I guess, because the low end was already pretty mono. And then we did some dynamic EQ and then some maximizing to boost the levels. And then from there, we went into adding some top end noise. This will really brighten up the mix. And then I did some soothe stuff on certain sections using presets to essentially get rid of any sort of additional mud. And a lot of this was trial and error. So I would add something, render it out, listen to it a bunch of times, and then see what it needed, and then kind of go back and then do some more editing. And I kid you not, I think I was like on version like 12 or something on this track by the time I actually stopped uh, re-rendering it and trying to perfect it. And then the final things were the digital clip, and then we have the limiter here. It doesn't seem like the limiter is doing much. Normally oversampling is what I use it for, but it is at the end. And then obviously to view my actual meters, I have different tools. So I use mini meters and then Julian. So, all right, guys, but that should cover all of my breakdown for this track, Distance. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I look forward to sharing the next.